Okay, we have a lot to get to. For all of you who subscribe to the email list, I will be taking this video and emailing it to you. So just to make sure that you don't miss out on this particular um, video, because we're talking about basically how to address tight hamstrings. And so there's going to be two types of people. They're going to be people, we're going to go through an active leg raise, which is the way that we screen for a tight hamstring. There's going to be people who are restricted of the range of motion in the active leg raise. There's going to be people who can do the active leg raise all the way to 90 degrees, but they're still going to have issues with tight hamstrings. And so we're going to be addressing the issue with the same progression here in 5 steps. If you just take the next 15 to 20 minutes to go through and follow along with the video, I shot some videos earlier that I'm going to screen share with you and talk you through how to do these exercises. This is how I've taken people who can't touch their toes, people who are super restricted in their active leg raise, and gotten them into a more normal range. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to be out of pain or out of that tightness, uncomfortable feeling so that we can do whatever it is that we want to do and really just have more freedom in our movement. That's what it's all about. It's not about being perfect. I'm going to show you my screen, and it's not perfect. It's just something that I'm always working on and trying to reinforce, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's jump right in and talk about the active leg raise. If you missed out on why we're not stretching the hamstring, go back to last week's training. I talked about it there. I don't want to take any more time because this is already going to take quite a bit of time to show you guys all this. So let's jump right into iMovie here. And I'm going to take you through basically the 5 steps of how I would address tight hamstrings. And so from here, you can do this against a wall. You can just do this out in space. But basically, you're going to try and keep your legs as straight as possible. Don't cheat the test. You're not trying to impress anybody here. We really want to get an honest feedback on what's going on our screen, right? So I'm going to lay down flat on my back, and I'm going to try and keep my legs as straight as possible. For a lot of us who have had ACL, meniscus, whatever surgeries, sometimes it's still hard to get full extension. I have times, you'll see it actually in this video, that my right knee still has a hard time fully extending after playing a lot of sports, but you're going to do your best. Just keep your leg as straight as possible, okay? And you can even press into the wall a little bit just to help you with that. Be honest. So from here, I'm just going to take one leg up nice and straight. I'm going to take it as high as I can, and that's it. Like, I'm just going to take it to the point where I feel like I can't go any further. My lower leg doesn't need to shift. My hips don't need to shift. It's literally just bring it up until you feel like you can't go any further, and then bring it back down. I think you'll see on my right side, see how my leg has a little bit of a bend. I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor, but yeah, sometimes it's just hard to get my leg to full extension after ACL surgery, but I don't have pain, so that's what's important. In this particular screen, what we're looking for is an ideal position is 70 to 90 degrees. And so I'm like pretty close to 70, but, and actually look a little better on the left side, which is funny. But you can tell that my leg is a lot straighter on this side. This is the knee I didn't have surgery. We can still demonstrate a huge range of motion in this test, or like 70 to 90, and still have issues with our hamstrings. And that's going to be person number 2, right? They're still going to benefit from the drills that I'm about to show you. What you might see for some of you is that you're pretty restricted. Like when you come up, try and slow this down. Maybe you can only get to here like 45 degrees, and that's okay. Both people are expressing very similar things. It's just that the person who can get up to, let's see if I can go, the person who can get up to 70 to 90 degrees but still feels a lot of tightness in their hamstrings, they're basically just doing the extreme of stretching through their hamstring to get to that range of motion. And that's not what we want. We want to address getting position of our bones first so that we can do it freely and that it's not like this huge strain on our hamstrings. So if you haven't done it yet, go ahead and lay down, try the assessment, see where you're at. So as we go along, I can tell you exactly what is going to be happening with you as we address cleaning this up. And so the first thing we're going to do, and let's just get a quick review of this. I'm going to give you a little, let's go back to the main screen here. Can I pull this up? Stop share. So go away. Oh my goodness. Go away. So if I lay you on your back and your pelvis is in that anterior tilt. We know that the hamstring from the back of the leg to where it hooks onto the pelvis, that it's already going to be in a other way. It's already going to be in a lengthened position. No, I was right. Extension this way. If I go to raise my leg, it should be restricted. I should have a hard time bringing my leg all the way up if I don't have good position of the pelvis. What can happen is, let's say I don't have good position of the pelvis. Person number one is going to be restricted. We know that. That's actually good, because once we restore the position, they should be able to go up all the way. Person number two is in a poor position of their pelvis, yet they can still bring their leg way up. They've really stretched their hamstring, and so they're going to benefit even more from the exercises that I'm about to show you. That's just a quick review. Let's get back on track here with our share. Okay. iMovie. Okay. So we did our screen. We know that we're either person number one, we're restricted, or we're person number two, we can still go to the normal 70 to 90 degrees, but our hamstrings are still really tight. If you're person number three who doesn't have any issues with your hamstrings and you can go to 90 degrees, you could probably stop watching, because you're fine. You could probably still benefit from some of these drills too, but not as much as the people who are really struggling with tight hamstrings. First thing we're going to learn, so this is step number two. First, we assess. Number two, we're going to learn how to tuck our butt. We're going to learn how to get that anterior tilt. We're going to try to posterior tilt. We're stuck in an anterior tilt. We need to learn how to tuck our butt. And the way we do that is actually by strengthening the hamstrings, getting those hamstrings back in a position of leverage. Your hamstrings have lost the position of leverage and your pelvis is tilting forward, and we need to fix that. So this drill isn't a max effort drill. It's a very subtle thing. And you see that I have my hands on my rib cage, because that's going to be the third step. And I'll talk about that when we get there. But the first thing, I just want to see if you can build some awareness of getting your hamstrings on in this position. So you're going to find a wall. You're going to put your feet flat. You can go a little longer than 90. I feel it's a little easier to get the hamstrings to turn on. You could try 90-90, and that's great too. But having your butt a little further, not so much like stacked on top of it, like your knees and your hips, right? Like you can push away from the wall a little more. From here, it's a very subtle, watch my hips. It's a very subtle move. Boop. That's it. Like I'm keeping most of my lower back flat on the ground. That was just like a little roll of the hips. See if I can. Oh yeah, that's super slow. Let's go a little faster than that. Here we go. Boop, boop. You can see it's very small position. And then once I get that, I'm going to hang out there and I'm going to try to find tension through the wall. I'm pushing my feet in and kind of downward into the wall. And I'm going from my heel to my toe. And I'm trying to figure out if I can sense my hamstring when I'm on my heel, when I go to the balls of my feet. Can I still keep that tuck? And it's basically mimicking gait, right? As I go through gait, I heel strike, I go through the ball of my foot off my toe. I want to be able to keep my hamstrings on through that full gait cycle to help maintain that butt staying under as much as possible. At least that's what we're trying to compensate towards in this drill. If this is pretty easy, you can try it on one leg. But for most of you, I'll have you just stay with both legs. You should feel your hamstrings. If you're doing this right, it's more about building the awareness of being able to tuck, contract your hamstring in that position and hold on, and just literally it's an isometric drill. We're trying to retrain those hamstrings to pull your pelvis underneath you, and that drill alone can help that test. If you're the person number one who was restricted, go back to it. Maybe your test improved. Actually, for person number two, you just might feel like it's easier to get your leg up, because now you don't have to just use the muscles of the hamstring and stretching them out to raise your leg up. You're actually going to get better leverage of getting your butt underneath you. And yeah, do that drill. If you don't feel your hamstrings, reach out to me. There's a lot of other drills that we can do. I'm just going to take the simplest ones that I could think of that give you a lot of feedback. So step number three, if we don't address the position of your rib cage, we might not ever really truly recover what's going on at the pelvis, because every time that I breathe, my rib cage moves, right? And that has influence over what's going on in my pelvis. Like your rib cage and what's going on at your diaphragm is like home base. Whatever goes on here affects the rest of the body. So we got to make sure that we can get our ribs down and back. That's going to give us the best leverage of our abs. It's going to give you the best diaphragm position, so that we can maintain better position of our thorax. So ribs down will help tuck my butt as well. For some people, if I just do this breathing, actually, if this is like the first thing that I do, a lot of times their active leg raise cleans up. And I've actually taken somebody who was like 6 inches away from touching their toes. All I did was this breathing drill, and all of a sudden they were able to touch their toes. So here's how it goes. You're going to perform that little tilt again like you did on the wall, but now you're just going to hold it and keep your feet flat. Don't worry about what's going on at your feet so much. I mostly just want you to have a flat lower back and a little bit of that tilt. Now we're going to focus on the breathing. You're going to inhale through the nose. You're going to exhale through the mouth. All of your breath, every ounce of breath, the more that you can get your rib cage down and back towards the ground here, you can see, the better. And then I'm going to hold that for 3, 4, 5 seconds. When I go to inhale on that next inhale, I'm trying not to lose the leverage of my ribs down. Like we're trying to keep them down there. Because if I can keep my ribs back and down, I can keep more of a posterior tilt. They work together. Like this is my rib cage, this is my pelvis. If my pelvis comes down, if my rib cage comes down, my pelvis will tilt back. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with this position. And then you'll inhale through the nose, and you should find air. You might feel a little bit restricted of air, to be honest. Like if you're just used to getting all of your air here, like where your ribs flare, this might not be super comfortable at first, but go slow. Get all the air out. We want those ribs to move. Inhale through the nose. You can see I'm getting more air up in my chest. That's where I'm really tight. So this drill is great for me. I always feel really good after doing this. My shoulder mobility, my active leg raise, everything in my body feels better after doing this. Some of you might feel more of a stretch through like your lower back and mid back as you breathe in. That's great. Maybe that's where you're tight and that's keeping you from being able to tilt your butt back. If I'm really tight in my lower back and I got a really deep arch, I might need to get some air there to get things to open up. Again, one more time. If you're doing this and you're following along, you've got a little bit of the tilt. Your lower back is flat. A little bit of pressure through the feet. I prefer the heels. Exhale all the breath through your mouth. Try to keep your ribs down as far down as they go. Pause for 3, 4, 5 seconds if you can. Inhale slowly through the nose. This isn't a max effort drill. This is just building better awareness of the position of your body, right? And you're going to try and do that for 5 rounds, basically, of the breathing. And then I would take a break. You do too many of those breaths in a row, you can get a little lightheaded if you're not used to it. And then come back to it and try and do it 2 or 3 sets of it before you retest yourself. So let's see how many more breaths I got here. I usually just do like 4 or 5 breaths at a time. Remember, full exhale, ribs are coming back and down towards the floor as much as possible. You're going to try not to let your hands get pushed away when you breathe in. You're going to try and keep those ribs down. Find air somewhere else. You can see my hands raise a little bit, but I'm getting air in other places, and it's really good. From here, this is the next step. Step number 4 is we're actually going to try and put it together. We're going to try and feel the abs and the hamstring together in one drill. You could go back to the first drill and do it kind of like we were doing with the breathing and just tilt up a little bit more and then maybe add the feet. But I like this drill because it's a little bit more challenging. And if you can do more challenging activities and still feel what we want to feel, then it's more likely going to stick, right? And so there's 2 things we're looking for here in the all fours position. I'm going to use the balls of my feet to help me tuck my butt underneath me. If you've done yoga, this is basically kind of like a cat position, but we're going to try and keep our head up in line with our spine. So the first thing I'm going to look at is, for most of you, you might see where the wrinkles are here in my lower back of my shirt. Some people have that all the time. Like they have a lot of compression in their lower back. We're going to try and take that away here by engaging the hamstrings, tucking the butt under. That's number 1. And let's see. Yep. I'm going to use the leverage of the wall with the balls of my feet to help me really tuck my butt underneath me. I'm trying to take all the wrinkles out of that shirt in the lower back there. I'm trying to get all the wrinkles out. The next thing, and a common mistake we see with this drill, is people kind of let their head dip down and they basically do this thing where their shoulders come together and the whole chest kind of dips towards the floor. We're going to actively reach away from the floor, pushing away, trying to get our rib cage up and back towards the ceiling, just like that. So now I've got my butt tucked. Ideally, I already feel my hamstrings. I'm going to reach away, trying to really reach my shoulder blades in front. Keep your shoulders away from your ears. We don't want to shrug it up. And you should feel tension here. This drill looks really easy from like just watching, but it is not. and all of my clients can attest to that. And you're going to do that same breathing cadence. I'm going to fully exhale, trying to get my ribs to go back as much as possible. I'm going to hold on to that tension. And in this position, it's a little bit easier to feel, the muscles here around the rib cage, your serratus, things that are going to help keep that rib cage back. And again, if you can feel your abs and your hamstrings and do the full exhalated breathing, the pause, slow inhale without losing that position, you're doing really good stuff for not just the hamstrings, like your whole body and your posture and your gait mechanics, and really establishing more of a neutral spine position and like learning how to breathe into different parts of your body. So, I mean, I'm not rounding crazy, right? Like my head is pretty in line with my spine. I'm more focused on that tuck of the tailbone. I'm not trying to go into like a ton of flexion like you would maybe like a traditional cat position. I just want to reach away and get my ribs back, and I want to get my butt underneath me. And I want to be able to feel that while I take some breaths, because it's more likely that if I can hold that position and breathe, my brain's going to say, okay, this position is safe. We've hung out here for a while. I've taken some good breaths. I'm starting to feel really good. There's definitely a neurological component to it. So that was step 4, was putting it together, getting abs and hamstrings together. Last step is basically challenging these positions and making them harder, but still being able to keep the awareness of the abs and hamstrings is what's going to really lock this all in. And that's basically what we do with strength training. Is these are like warm-up drills that I would do with a client that had this particular issue. And then we would find exercises that actually work those same muscles in a good position so that we could reinforce it, lock it in, so that ideally we don't have to do this drill for the rest of our lives. Like ideally. I play a lot of sports. There's a lot of other things that drive us into these patterns. Like I play a lot of sports, and every time I'm playing a lot more basketball, speed and agility sports, I tend to just favor this extension pattern, and I start to get these little nagging things, and I go back to these drills to reestablish good position. And mostly for me, it's like get out of my lower back and get out of my right hip, stuff like that. But first we gotta. Okay, so this is the drill. This is how we progress to make it a little more challenging. I'm still going to use that reference of keeping my feet in line with the wall, and I'm going to try to keep my butt tucked. I actually reshot this video because I thought I could have done a better job tucking my butt, and for whatever reason, that video wouldn't upload from my phone. So this is what we're going to get. Just pretend like my pelvis is still rotating underneath me even more than this. I do feel my hamstrings in this position, but I want to get more of that posterior tilt and really feel them in that position. That's what really matters. It's not just that your hamstrings are strong and that you can feel them. It's can we feel them in the position of the posterior tilt in that tuck, right? We're trying to train them to be strong in a better position. It's important. And I can also do a better job of getting my ribs back. Like when I reshot this, it did look a little bit better, but that's okay. The point of this is that I'm putting myself in an environment where it's a little bit more challenging. And this is a progression to like a Nordic hamstring curl. I don't know if you've seen people do that. It's a really impressive thing to be able to do, where they fall forward and then pull themselves up with their hamstrings. The one thing that I would stress though is do it in a good position. Don't use your back and all these other things. Like really try to maximize the position and get good posture. And let's like really focus on better mechanics and movement before we like really crank up the intensity. Right? Even those drills that I was doing before, I shot these for a couple days because I got a new phone and I had to reshoot them because I wanted to use this camera this week. And I was actually pretty sore from doing these. I wasn't expecting it. I think I also did my own workouts. So being in a better position, using my hamstrings better. I think when I went and did my squats and stuff, I was just using them much better, like using them in a position that was more favorable. And like my hamstrings and my glutes were super sore. So you're going to get more out of all your other activities too, because now you're going to be using your muscles in a better position. So, this is great. I think about this too. I actually do this particular drill when I'm going to have people deadlift sometimes. And if there's somebody who likes to favor locking out with their lower back, I'll have them do this drill in the warm up because it forces them to feel their hamstrings and their glutes. And so when they come up out of their deadlift and they lock out their hips, I try to tell them, hey, feel what you felt in that drill that we did before. This particular kneeling drill. I'm like, oh yeah, and it always looked better, and they're always building better awareness. That's the 5th step. And that's actually the last of it. There are a bunch of other drills that you could do, but this is like the simplest progression that I could think of. Regardless if you're the first person or the second person, after doing all of these drills, you should see a better test. And then I actually did retest, and it was on that same video that wouldn't upload. And it was interesting. It was my right leg actually got a lot better, and I was closer to 90, and my left leg stayed about the same. And that's a conversation for another day when we talk about asymmetry, but I don't have that many issues with my hamstrings, so this isn't necessarily something that always stands out to me. But I think this is going to be something that is very helpful for you guys. I don't know if you've seen anything quite like this. Let me know if this is helpful, if you like it. I'm going to email all of you guys on the email list. If you want me to take a look at your assessment and give you some feedback, I'd be happy to do that. I'd love to see all of you guys get over this hamstring issue, because I think traditionally what people are doing isn't necessarily helping them for the long run. Doing a hamstring stretch might temporarily give you some relief, but it also might be driving you deeper into this pattern of a lengthened hamstring that needs to be actually strengthened and help you reestablish a good pelvis position so that it is easier to raise your leg. Like I said, guys, I haven't stretched a hamstring in 7, 8 years. And I've taken people who can't touch their toes to touching their toes. I've taken people who came in with like a 40-degree active leg raise to 90. And this is the kind of stuff that we didn't have to stretch. And they felt better, and the rest of their body felt better. I really hope you guys, if you are having an issue with hamstrings, that you do these very simple things. And if you're having trouble feeling what you're supposed to feel within some of those drills, just reach out. I'm happy to talk you through it and find maybe a better activity for you. Thanks again for watching. This was the 22nd Need to Know, and hope you guys are all having a good weekend. And I'm going to try and get these out to you once a week. I've been getting super busy. Like, it's great. The gyms are opening up a little bit more. People are getting a little bit more comfortable coming into the gym now that more people are being vaccinated. And so it's great, but I do want to keep the momentum on this. I love chatting with you. I love all your feedback, and I want to get all the word out of all the great stuff that I've been exposed to, and people I've been exposed to, and just the ideas that have been really game changing, and the things that I know work for clients, and getting you there in the safest, easiest, fastest way possible. I want to keep spreading the word. Let me know that you stopped by. I hope you guys are all having a good weekend, and I will see you next week. And I think I'm probably not done yet. Let's see. Let's just finish the Zoom call, because that'll definitely do it.